It costs approximately $100,000 a year to house someone in a state correctional facility. Yet, out of that massive budget, the amount allocated to feed that human being for an entire day is roughly $1.20. The math inside these facilities operates on a completely different frequency than the outside world. Consider a person assigned to an industrial laundry detail, working 8-hour shifts in a humid, bleach-filled room. Their wage might be 5 cents an hour. If they get an infection and need to see a nurse, the state mandates a $13.55 medical copay. To afford a single 5-minute visit to be told to drink more water, that person has to work 271 hours, 30 full, back-breaking shifts. The system constantly claims it has no money for basic biological needs. But if that ignored infection turns into life-threatening sepsis, suddenly the capital flows freely. The facility will generate a $2,822 invoice for a 3-mile, 3-minute ambulance ride, billed by a specialty transport contractor. When you look closely at these numbers, you realize you have to stop analyzing American incarceration as a struggling, underfunded justice system. The math describes a highly engineered business model, and the corporate entities extracting this wealth aren't operating in the shadows. As we trace how this money moves, you'll see how these extraction machines are quietly hiding in the monthly retirement statements of everyday citizens. To hit a $1.20 daily food budget, vendors have to engineer costs down to a fraction of a cent. This image shows the mechanical output of an industrial protein recovery process. Vendors purchase the spent carcass, the bone, gristle, and connective tissue, left over after prime retail cuts are stripped away. It's pressed through a high-pressure sieve, washed in ammonia gas, mixed with binders, and extruded into shelf-stable pellets. The body can extract calories from this paste, but it structurally lacks the micronutrients and essential fatty acids a human brain needs for executive function. When you chronically deprive the prefrontal cortex of these specific nutrients, impulse control collapses. The brain operates in a state of heightened reactivity. You get impulsive aggression and eventually violence. In 2002, a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial at a high-security facility in England tested a simple intervention. They gave one group a 5-cent daily multivitamin and an omega-3 supplement. Violent incidents in that group dropped by 37%. The results have been replicated for 2 decades, but American facilities ban these supplements, classifying them as contraband security risks. If you fix the nutritional deficiency cheaply, you cure the violence. And if you cure the violence, you threaten the justification for the $135,000 per year security contracts, the surveillance cameras, and the private guard forces. Which brings us to the second phase of the engineering, the starve and charge model. Look at how this flowchart tracks a family's money. Because the state-funded tray is inedible, families desperately send an average of $172 a month to the facility's commissary so their loved ones can buy overpriced ramen and honey buns. They aren't supplementing a diet, they are paying to replace one intentionally destroyed. And the state is a willing partner in this loop. For every commissary item sold, the state takes a commission ranging from 15 to 37.5. Private food vendors degrade the primary meal, and both the vendor and the state profit from the captive families buying the replacements. That same logic extends to the clinic. This visual ledger shows how a capitation contract works. A state pays a private medical vendor a flat fee, often around $412 a month per person, to cover all healthcare. If a patient never sees a doctor, the vendor keeps that entire block as pure profit. The moment they provide a diagnostic test or an antibiotic, the cost is deducted directly from their corporate margin. This creates what is known as the gatekeeper protocol. Nurses are trained to defer care. If a patient comes in with a rotting tooth, a filling is considered a non-essential expense. The protocol is to pull the tooth entirely. It permanently disfigures the patient, but it protects the capitation margin. The deferrals compound. A patient complains of an infection for weeks. They are given Tylenol and told to drink water, while the infection slowly migrates into the bloodstream and becomes sepsis. The vendor allows this to happen because of a specific line item called a carve-out clause. Under the contract, the vendor handles routine care, but catastrophic emergencies are billed directly to the local taxpayer. If the vendor waits until the infection becomes a life-threatening emergency, the expensive ICU bill leaves their ledger entirely. The extraction doesn't stop at the hospital doors. While the patient is on a ventilator, the vendor's subsidiaries charge the state those massive specialty transport fees we saw earlier. And if a mother wants to see her dying son, she is charged $15 for a low-resolution 20-minute video call. A healthy patient is a minor profit, but under the capitation model, catastrophic medical failure is a highly lucrative, guaranteed return on investment. Eventually, a grieving family gets hold of the medical logs. They compile the undeniable record of delayed care and file a massive wrongful death suit against a billion-dollar vendor like Corazon Health. But as this diagram shows, the vendor has a legal escape hatch. By utilizing a specific Texas corporate law, a company can execute a divisive merger, often called the Texas two-step. Overnight, the billion-dollar entity slices itself perfectly in half. One half becomes a shell company. It is handed the $1.2 billion in debt and every single wrongful death lawsuit. That shell instantly files for bankruptcy. This triggers an automatic stay, freezing the family's claims for years and leaving them fighting a mailbox in a Texas strip mall. Meanwhile, the other half of the split takes a pristine new name, like YesCare. It keeps the equipment, the revenue streams, and the profits. It walks away completely insulated from the victims. The state isn't a victim of this legal fiction. When the new shell company declares bankruptcy, the state immediately signs a no-bid contract with the resurrected half of the vendor. Because the dying victims are quarantined in the bankrupt shell, the new company presents the state with zero mortality statistics. Everyone gets exactly what they want. You have to ask where the capital to run an operation this large comes from. The politicians sign the contracts, but they don't supply the money. The capital comes from the American middle class. These private prison and medical vendors are embedded deep inside standard index funds managed by the largest institutional asset managers on Earth. If you have a 401k or a pension managed by a firm like Vanguard or BlackRock, you are likely the silent partner funding this machine. Your stable retirement growth is subsidized, fractionally but directly, by the $1.20 starvation diet, the denied fillings, and the $15 hospital video calls. This isn't an accident of the market. The carceral business model has survived 2 decades of documented failure because the voting public with the most power to dismantle it is unknowingly collecting dividends on its cruelty.